We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
To the Tenacious Minds Thrive podcast, episode 3. I am your host, Nazir Yishmael, and this podcast is brought to you by Thrive Enterprises Incorporated. Today, we have a guest with us, a special guest, Heru. Heru, welcome.
Yes, sir. How you doing? Thank you for letting me come and join you.
No doubt. Now, we've known each other for a while, full disclosure, right? We've known each other.
Yes, sir.
Almost 2 decades now, right?
Yes, sir. And going. Yes.
Right. So you recently started, and it's not even recent, actually. It's been, how long have you started the You Are the Gym module that you work with?
2017.
So we're talking about 5 years now almost.
Yeah, 5 years. Yes, sir.
All right. So tell me a little bit about it. You know, what is it that you, what does that mean, You Are the Gym?
So the values of You Are the Gym are really specific and really to the point, I recall. But the simplicity to break it down with one word is like, well, 2 words, I would say, because it's discipline and a commitment. You know what I'm saying? It's discipline and a commitment. You know what I'm saying? And that's the nutshell of You Are the Gym, you know?
Okay. And that's why I wanted you to explain it, because I knew what it was. I knew we talked about it before. You know, we have many conversations. So
for sure.
And that's the thing that, as you know how I am, the thing that we know is we have to break down, like you were saying earlier, you have to keep things simple. And when you know things step by step, when you know how to do things step by step, the first thing you do is this, the second thing you do is that. It actually keeps things simple.
Yes.
And so when you say commitment, you know me, I present the tenacity. You got to stay focused on it, right? You got to stay committed to it. But if you don't get that mindset right, and what I mean by getting your mindset right, you got to determine, like what you said even before we started, was who are you? You know, what do you want? Establishing yourself. Because when you start dealing with things outside of that, then you start losing or degrading your locus of control, right?
And your abilities. Yes. Yeah. Agree.
So you were telling me about some things that you were doing to kind of, you know, to focus on your self-improvement. You know, tell me a little bit about that.
So yes, so it's been some interesting things. I've always been, as a youngster, interested in self-help, personal development, right? That's always been my focus. When I think even in high school, the subject matters and certain things that I engaged myself into were like, how can I self-improve? How can I become better? You know, and just to take you back, you know, growing up in a musical family, we tended to get the music bug, I guess you could say. Me and my brothers, we started our little group from the Avery Boys to the New Covenant and many other. I mean, even when I look at my progression as an artist in itself, from really learning how to create songs, develop songs, understanding music theory, you know, how these elements work, how harmony work and melodies work. And one of the lessons I have been getting, and it's been interesting too, because Nelson Del Pino comes to mind, a good friend of mine, older gentleman. He's he teaches singing techniques. One of his biggest proteges was the Sunjai kid from who was actually on the American Idol. Oh, wow. I forgot it. And he ended up taking 3rd or 2nd. It was crazy. Or maybe even 1st at one time. But he that was one of his proteges, one of his successes, Nelson Del Pino. Yeah, and he's a great friend of mine, good friend, long-term friend.
Well, it sounds like you got an extensive background, man. You got music and fitness and health. I know we were talking about your studies in the body.
Yes.
You know, with the physiology of the body. And, you know, as we said, as we agreed, the body's an amazing mechanism, man. It's amazing the things that we can accomplish with with our body.
Indeed, I agree to that 1,000,000%. Because even the transformation, and the funny thing is how I've been looking at that, even with the wrestling background I have had throughout my high school, college years, junior high. You know what I'm saying? It's interesting because when I think about all the traveling, so I wasn't never afraid of the traveling, going to different places, going to different states, seeing how the mentality is. The one thing with me, and I think has been one of my personalities, and I just really realized it. Always been focused on my health. What do my health look like? What do my body look like? These are the things that I'm kind of been, and maybe that's from my wrestling days. I'm just kind of throwing that out there because I always wanted to not necessarily prove to everybody else, but prove to myself what I can do and not have an ego associated to it.
Right.
You kind of see what I'm saying?
I know exactly what you mean. And I think when you said right there, about health, a lot of athletes or people that were, athletes, you and I a little bit older, but we're still athletes because we still, we still maintain, right?
Yes.
But when you're athletes, when you're young, you have to develop routines, and then especially as you advance, you have the discipline of establishing routines. And then as you advance, you have to start focusing on different parts that it's not just about natural talent and hard work. You got to look at your diet and your the different components like that. So when you start talking about, looking at your health, I think that's one of the things that, especially elite athletes, when they start getting to collegiate level or international level.
Oh, agree.
Yeah. More professional levels, you have to start focusing on that because there's very few things that separate the top from the bottom, right?
Oh, for sure.
And
for sure. Yeah, and that is one component. I got a few friends and a few family members that are triathlon athletes. And I tend to talk with them and engage with them. And, and a good friend of mine, George Veroniak, he was saying it's not about winning it's not about winning, even though you're going to win regardless if you finish to complete the project. You see what I'm saying? So I was like, okay, yeah. And I've been understanding that principle for many years now, just even from my lower, going through those particular training lessons throughout organized sports via football, via basketball, whatever the case may be. And then having certain mentors. That's another thing I think we're missing within this particular society is mentors, people who are actually breeding you, literally, and I don't mean it like breeding you, but at the same time guiding you to think about certain issues that you don't really think about as a youngster or as a man or as a husband, vice versa.
Well, you hit a major nail on that one. We'll go down another tangent with that, which is fine too. We'll come back to the rest of the segment. But one of the things I noticed, as you mentioned about some of the things that's going on in today's society, is that men are becoming very effeminate. And I think, one of the reasons or one of the causes for that is because we separated, in many cases, unfortunately, especially in our culture, we've taken the father out of the household.
Oh, for sure.
Typically, a father wants their son to be, masculine, disciplined, and structured. You know what I mean? But the problem, I think, that compounds that,
agree.
Right, is when we do have guys that, that maintain or say, hey, you know what, I'm going to break that cycle, which is a good thing. Don't get it twisted. But they still haven't been raised by a man to know how a man should be developing. And what compounds that even worse is because we can still come out of that is we have children early. And when that happens, when we don't have a man that we're raised with to teach us the masculinity of manhood, and here's the biggest thing, because this was a big thing for me, is that it's okay to be masculine. Because I used to have masculine concepts, thoughts, and whatnot. And then people would be like, you're a little too aggressive, or, you're a little too masculine aspect. And so it makes you start questioning things sometimes. But I was like, I just couldn't do it. I had to be me.
And that's what I love about you. Because, you have created, you've been so a big influence in my life throughout the years, you know what I'm saying? Even like on the family principles, certain things and certain ideologies that I never really dived into. I started questioning myself and starting revealing the answers, because you've been that mentor for me. You've been one of those mentors, you know what I'm saying? And you've definitely been a big influence in my life, especially with all the training I mean, because we have a lot of training together, brother.
Oh yeah, man. That's why I'm telling you. Since you left, I haven't had a partner like you that I could just try new things with and push the limits like that. So
and I think that has been a part of my success too. With when I look at it too, I'm like, okay, all the lessons we've been going through, because this is what you and Boz and Zaki and a few other brothers that come to mind, Kahafri, man. When you talk about brothers training in the training field, out there in the field, man, you the brothers I look up to, because I know you did it, you proved it.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Right.
And matter of fact, my cousin, shout out to him, he's been checking out the podcast shows, Abdul. He had mentioned he wanted to hear about us talking about our experience within the sovereignty world and what we're how we're responding today. That's what he asked for, to really pinpoint. But the cool thing, what I'm bringing this up, because I'm like, look, all the lessons we learned throughout our particular time together, we always question certain things, certain elements. That was one of the things. And then when I'm thinking about you too, like even when you stood up to Dr. Malachi York, not meaning it that way on a negative, but you know what I'm saying? These points in our lives, certain stories that we have been given, you know what I'm saying? And what we have taken from the lesson, that might be too deep for a lot of people. But
well, yeah, you bring up
the simplicity, the thing. That's what I love about you, the simplicity, making things simple. So we don't have to be trying to figure this, that, and the third. You know?
Well, you honor me, man. And the thing is, the reason I know that too is because I've had to teach children. And that's one of the things I'll tell you. When you mentioned earlier about society, things going on with society and whatnot, one of the things, you're right, one of the biggest things we're missing is mentors. We don't have mentors, or people are not being mentors for these little boys anymore. And so now you have little boys that are confused, thinking little girls. And listen, there's nothing wrong with having questions about, your existence as a child. That's a curious mind. Those are the ones that's what we want. We want curiosity.
Yes.
But as parents, we're supposed to lay an anchor so that they don't go too far off the track. Because here's the thing, they're supposed to stand on our shoulders to rise above, not go sideways, not go down into the ground and burrow. What's the point in going backwards? You know what I'm saying?
Indeed. And you don't, yes.
They're creating other problems. They're creating problems for themselves. So I think you hit a major thing when you said that. So I just wanted to make sure I acknowledge that. But let's get to another thing, because you go back to real quick to and we'll get to the sovereignty thing, because I do have some thoughts on that. But we'll get back to that in a second. But back to You Are the Gym real quick. I noticed that you use a lot of, or at least in the past, you had used a lot of body weight movement, where you would do handstands, you would do handstand push-ups, you would do what do they call them?
Muscle ups.
Muscle ups, yeah, sorry about that. Muscle ups, you mentioned that you were doing gymnastics training, and now that when you start mentioning that, and it's that, when people mention calisthenics, I have a big admiration for gymnasts.
Oh, man.
They're some of the most strongest people in the world, because they can control their body so much. I get strong man and stuff like that, but
that is like the pinnacle. I've been always envying a gymnastic body, gymnastic brother, sister, whatever the case may be. When you're talking like the athleticism, when you're talking like the mobility, the flexibility, the control, the coordination. Right. I mean, to do them backflips and triple backflip, boom, boom, boom. Think how fast the muscle fibers are going, as well as the mind, what's going on in the mind. And that's what I love about when you think about that in general, that brings us to that mental toughness. Yes. And with that commitment and that discipline, you know what I'm saying? Regardless of what's going on, not just in my life, but in others' life, still get it in. It's always about me. It is still about me. Don't take me wrong. Because if me ain't correct, everything else is not going to be correct.
Yeah, you got to start at the focal point.
You feel me?
Yeah, you gotta have that focal point, right? But yeah, go ahead.
And it's interesting how even when I think about the progression of my my athleticism. I'm still doing the push-ups. I'm still doing the muscle ups and stuff, but it's all part of the system. It's all part of the long-term game. That's the beauty about what calisthenics bring to the game. Gymnastics is calisthenics. Mm-hmm. It's just the gymnast has a more art form, and the gymnast is prepping most of the boring work that you don't see. You know what I'm saying?
Well, they're preparing for an athletic performance. Whereas, many people that do workouts are looking for toning, for how they look, some how they perform. Calisthenics is the reason that I want to bring this back up, is because a couple of things is about calisthenics is about controlling the body in ways that we do naturally anyway. In performances, and considering that we're hopefully near the end of a pandemic, we want to get into how can people work out, get their resistance training in, get their athletic training in without equipment.
Okay.
And I think that's one of the things that you hit on a lot with.
Yeah, and that's the one thing too. And I want to demonstrate that within my videos. And the element is too, this is the one key I think a lot of people are not doing. They're not even starting. So my point would be, get out there and just start it. Even if you're doing 5 push-ups, start off with 5 push-ups. Then the next day or the following day, do 6. Just build it up. It's going to take slow. It's not like you got fat overnight, or it's not like you know what I'm saying? This stuff, it's a progression as far as the long-term game. And that's the thing with me. I'm looking at the long-term game. I want to be 85. And I want to be looking just as good as I was looking in 45. You feel me? I mean, this is the mentality that I think I bring different from a lot of personal trainers, because a lot of personal trainers are fitness trainers or experts or gurus. A lot of them just want your money. And they're going to tell you anything and everything just to compel you to get your money. Fuck all that shit. I'm going to be 100 with you. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to be 100 with you. And you, brother Nas, you probably the only one that know I'm down from day one. You feel what I'm saying? I mean, come on. We'll go in the sovereignty thing and all the sacrifices brothers was doing.
Yeah.
You feel me? You sacrifice your whole family. I was like, when I seen that, I was like, yeah, I'm down. See, and that's the thing that I don't think people really pay attention to either. But it's understanding, because it's a disguise now. The masculinity is disguised.
Well, wait, hold on a second. I do want to get on something. Talk on something. What do you mean I sacrificed my family? Kind of explain that for people, because there are people who think that. Well, wait, did this brother just give his family up? What was going on?
Oh yeah, okay. Let me qualify that as Brother Nas was saying. So, not meaning it on well, yeah, pretty much. I mean, when you put your family in a certain state of mind, a certain state of defense, let me put it that way. It's kind of like what our sports is not playing anymore. They're not playing defense. Everybody's playing offense. Therefore, we're promote all the offense of stats and all that other crap, but you don't talk about the defense side of things.
Right? I got you. So you're talking about like when I took my kids out of school and started homeschooling.
Brother, you was handling your business. So, you was handling your business.
I just want people, I definitely did want
and I'm with you, brother. Yeah, and I'm with you. Maybe we get more, maybe we get more downloads with our propaganda scams.
All right.
But that's in a nutshell, just kind of keeping things in perspective. That's another thing, keeping things in perspective, that we can definitely do our own research, do our own due diligence and homework, where we can actually know what we're going to get out of this particular event.
Well, one thing too, you mentioned that we started talking about how people can work out without equipment necessarily.
Okay.
And then, but the other thing that you mentioned was people getting started, just get it started. But I will tell you this, I have to add one thing with that. And I think that this is where people like you and I can miss it, because we've been athletes for so long.
Yes.
You talking about teenage years, right? Even preteens. Because I think I was running track and playing football since 10 years old, 11 years old.
Yeah, that's about it. Yeah.
So, and every year, so whenever you started, I never quit. I didn't take a break. You know what I mean? It was always some type of
amazingly,
sports. But one thing that people miss is we have to, I think, and this is where Nike gets it wrong, and you can also see where when people do New Year's resolutions.
Yes,
When
what
people
you discussed.
when people just get started, you know, they say, hey, I want to do this. This is going to be my New Year's resolution. It's going to be my goal for the year. And they go ahead and get started, or they, you know, Nike wake up in the morning, they just do it. Actually, that creates a negative connotation. It creates quitters. Because if you don't set your mindset right first, you're going to eventually run into a wall, and it's going to be, I'm too tired this morning, or, you know, I'm sore this morning, or I got the sniffles. Now, if you're really sick, you know, that's not what I'm talking about. If you got the sniffles or something like that, or I just don't feel like being cold, or it's raining, those are things that obstacles, I call them hurdles. And this is one of the reasons why I used to love the hurdles in track. But I call them hurdles that you have to overcome, because there's always going to be something wrong. There's always going to be something there. And we run into that wall when we start an endeavor. We run into that wall, and then we give up, or we lose a significant amount of steam to where we hit that next wall or run through a little bit of mud. Okay, I'm tired. I'm ready to go home. So I do agree with you. We got to get it going. But how many people do we know that have started New Year's resolutions? How many times we've been to a gym, right?
Plenty.
Beginning of the year, we always have to change our schedule because the New Year's resolution has come in, and the gym is packed for the first month. And
super packed.
And then come February, half of them drop off. And then come the end of February, okay, we're pretty much back to normal. You know, where the people that are actually working out year round are still there.
Yeah,
and I get it. That was the other thing that you mentioned about the fitness industry. How so many things are. I mean, there's so many myths in the fitness industry. You know, you would probably lose business trying to correct everything that is.
Yes.
Because a lot of it is marketing. You know what I mean? They're trying to get
hugely. Like the biggest fraud or scam is Planet Fitness.
Oh man.
How can you not have no commitment? You know what I'm saying? And then what y'all doing, y'all building on the bullshit. That's the thing I can't get with the gym. Well, you might as well, you be better at having your own home gym to go and pay some, you know, even if it is $9.99.
Well, that's the thing. You hit it right on the head. The last show I did was about the psychosis and the psychology of mass psychosis and other things like that, and conditioning. That their Planet Fitness platform, their marketing is to make the payment so low that you're not worried about it losing.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Exactly. So $9.99 or $10, you're like, you know what? If I don't go that much this month, you know, if I go one time, I pay for it. You know what? I didn't go all this month. It's only $10. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's a cup of coffee at Starbucks.
For sure.
So and that's one of the things that people have to understand about this industry. I get it. You know, people want a silver bullet. They want that silver coin where they can just flip it and that's it. They can take that pill and like, oh yeah, I got it. But one of the things I used to love that, you know, we used to say, what was his name? Tim Vagan used to drill in our heads.
Yeah.
You cannot out-exercise a bad diet.
Yeah.
You cannot out-exercise a bad diet. You can be the most phenomenal athlete in the world in your youth. And as you start deteriorating and you're going to at the end of your career, because you haven't fueled yourself with quality fuel, you're gonna begin to fray. And when you begin to fray, that's the steepest part of the downfall. That was one of the things that I wanted to make sure that I didn't do in life. And it sounds like, you know.
No, you're right. You're right. You was always on the plane. Your mindset was already there. I mean, shit, we met at 24-hour fitness.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right.
So it was already there. It was just the whole point of just combined and connecting. You know what I'm saying? And that was all she wrote. Since then, we done had homes and all kinds of
bro. Shit. Yeah. That's another thing. Hey, challenging the system. So hey,
yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. That's the thing too. And I think even though we're far in distance now, but it's still been the drive for me. That's why I'm like, being able to get around people, understand. I mean, I wouldn't have met Arlette if it wasn't for the, people's property rights.
Oh yeah,
you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
All these people we done met all over the globe, pretty much. I still connect with them, talk with them, enjoy with them. And the thing is too, even with like body weight exercises, the first thing I think everybody needs to start there. Master your body weight, then go in the gym and add that other stuff. And that's where I'm at right now, even though I've been there for a while. But the key thing when I really go back to calisthenics and what calisthenics really meant to me in gymnastics, it's just about understanding your body, how your body moves. And in yoga too, being a yoga certified yogi, you know what I'm saying? That really took it into a more deeper understanding with your breathing, with your meditation practice. And it's funny too, because even when you back in the day, you was already hitting that stuff up. You talked about like binaural beats, back then. And I was always, let me go check that out. Even though I was really into that stuff high school, I just never knew what it really could do for you. You know what I'm saying? At the time.
That's what being coached is, right? The coach knows what we're doing and we're just being told what we're doing. But when you actually learn what it is, why they were telling us what we're doing, and you learn more about the body and the biggest thing, like you said, learn about the brain. Ooh, man, we have an amazing mechanism. Yeah, we got amazing mechanism.
Yeah. Nootropics. I want to throw that out because a lot of people, please do your own research, do your own homework, do your due diligence. But nootropics, check that out. First nootropics I got was with Rich Pina, rest in peace. Rich Pina's company, 5% Nutrition. When I tried that mentality, brother, I was like, whoa, this is almost like how it affected me at first. It affected me like if we was on cannabis, literally. And it took your mind to a whole nother level. And it lasted so long. I think it lasted 6 hours for me, roughly 6 hours for me. But some people had it up to 8 hours. Really? You see what I'm saying? The doses that you take. It's possible that they changed the ingredients or lessen the ingredients in the product today because it don't affect me like that anymore.
Tell me what it does. I've never taken.
So it's more brain cognitive techniques. Focus in your brain, focus in your thoughts, when you're into certain things. And some nootropics now, some of the nootropics will help out with creativity. You know what I'm saying? I'm taking a nootropic right now.
Nootropics. I don't know why.
Nootropics. Yeah, nootropics. I'm taking this APC. This alpha GPC. I'm sorry, alpha GPC. And it's been interesting. It's an interesting little understanding of helping out with your cognizant, your focus, and your creativity. That's why I'm kind of always now, and I'm really putting myself in a situation where I'm going to be doing more editing and, more product development, because I haven't been doing as much product development. And when it comes to like producing more products, even though you can go buy my t-shirts, you can buy my stem cells as well. But these
you got a line of stem cells?
Yes, I got a line of stem cells. Yes, sir.
We got a bit to get into. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, but certain things like that I've been focusing on. But at the same time, the body is the most important. Don't take me wrong. Your relationships and everything else have to balance out. And that's the key thing of the body. So that's been one of the interesting, being the age of 10 years old and getting indoctrinated in the football game or the football particular environment. When they get you on weights, my uncle, I think about it, my uncles and my dad, they always had us in these weights. So we kind of tend to see how it benefits later. My dad is like a genius when it comes to that type of stuff, programming and all that stuff. Shot hands down to my pops, wherever you're at, if you're listening to this.
It's funny. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just building on just giving people an understanding of what's going on, how my life kind of shaped, because it was a discipline. It's certain disciplines I think we need to tune into or stay in tune to, because the principles don't change, right? The principles don't change. We change. We change. And how we look at
especially when we don't establish our own principles. But
yes. Because recently I've been getting into, the last few years I've been getting into Stoicism. Yep. And it's been Stoicism a lot more sense to me for some reason. I don't know. And we can talk about this. This is on some spirituality stuff. Maybe I've been here, because certain things kind of seem like, okay, I know this. This is where I need to be. This is where I need to navigate, or this is where, this is where the plans are being developed, in other words. So that's always been the game. Go ahead. It's all you.
No, I was just going to say Stoicism is simply a means that is used that is probably the strongest self-empowerment medium that can be used, because it doesn't allow you to permit outside things to control you.
Yes.
Or to affect you in that regard. And that's you hit that on the head when you mentioned earlier that about how we respond in society today with so many things we have such weak mindedness, because we get triggered. And that's where that word trigger comes from. It's actually a psychological word for things that trigger an emotion, an emotional response. And that's one of the reasons why I cannot stand in this media to this day, because they're not here to tell us the truth. They're here to get emotional responses from us. But I didn't mean to digress. Go ahead.
No. And it makes sense. It makes sense. Even with the situation with Joe Rogan getting kicked off of Spotify, or attempted to get kicked off.
Yeah, they tried.
Because of freedom of speech. Yeah. Pretty much because of freedom of speech. We fail to realize that all these mediums are for you to express yourself, period. Well, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, when you say that, I have to say this. I was in the military, and that's a pet peeve of mine, is that when people say, hey, I want free speech, but they only want it for themselves. We didn't take an oath, and I don't care how much you love America, have disdain for America, whatever the case is. I served in that military, and I took an oath to uphold, people's rights for certain things, whether I like it or not. And it's disrespectful to me. And to me, as far as and I can't speak for other vets, but I would think it would be disrespectful to other vets that, sacrificed and gave their, gave their lives, gave their limbs, gave their minds. I mean, some of the things that some of these people that went to Afghanistan and Iraq that went to, and we think there wasn't a whole lot of hand-to-hand fighting. There was a lot of things going on that affected people's minds. You have literally situations where, and I don't mean to get dark, but where people were doing things to children, for example, and they could hear them screaming, and there's nothing they could do about it because they were ordered to stand down. You cannot tell me that doesn't affect a man's mind. No, you can't tell me, or a woman's mind, because there are women there as well. So you can't tell me that doesn't affect people's mind. But anyway, I didn't mean to digress. But all this stuff.
Because it makes sense. It's building on what we're talking about, and that's the whole point. You got to build character, right? You got to build some commitments. You got to build an understanding of knowing yourself. That's the key thing. That's why I took on the name of Heru. You know what I'm saying? Because it's all the ideology was like resonating with me. I said, this is even the Quran talks about it. I'm the all-knower, I'm the all-seer. So it's you talking to yourself. You got to motivate yourself. Indeed. You got to be self-inspired. You got to be, this is really what it comes down to I think in life in general, because life usually gives you the lessons. It's just, are you listening to the lessons? Are you tuning in? Yes. Yeah, are you tuning in?
Well, that's what it's understand. We got to sit down, shut up, and listen. Sometimes that's what meditation and contemplation is about, and then sometimes that's what prayer is about. If you're going to ask for something, whether it's something physical or whether it's a question, you have to sit down, shut up, and listen for the response. Because if you just get up and say, hey, I want this, can you do this, and then you go on about your way, you're going to miss the point of how to get there. You're going to miss the opening of how to get there, because the universe is going to open it up for you. I can bear witness to that.
Yeah, for sure.
But you mentioned earlier about sovereignty and asked me about that. One of the things I think, and you can tell me what your thoughts are, but one of the things that I recognize about sovereignty movement is that it was a parallel to the revolutionary movement. If you recall, in the mid-90s, fight the power type movement and things like that.
Yes.
I didn't know you then, but I used to, you mentioned Dr. York, and there were several other organizations that I worked with up here in the Northwest. Now, Dr. York and weren't based up here. They were mostly based east, especially in the Northeast, and before they moved down to Atlanta. But one of the things that I learned about that movement, man, I simply asked one question that opened my eyes to it. What's the end game? What's our purpose? What are we doing this towards? And when that couldn't get answered, I couldn't stick with it. And to let people know what I mean is that back so I was in the military from 88 to 91. That's when I first learned about Dr. York, and not just Dr. York, but people like him. I studied under the Nation of Islam, studied Al-Din Shabazz, different aspects. And I even created the Nubian Society, if you recall me telling you about that.
Yes.
So, and that was about, Black identity, understanding why the Panthers were doing the things that they were doing, why Malcolm X, journey went the way it went, what was Martin Luther King really talking about? And not just them, but all of the ones, what was really going on with Elijah Muhammad. But when I began to ask questions, about what was the end game, especially when I saw that when Malcolm had the opportunity to even start a revolution, to get it going, because they were at the height of, abuses, and then the way Elijah Muhammad responded, and then even dealing with Dr. Khalid.
Earlier, the 90s,
right. When I met him a couple of times, so even in our conversations, I could tell that there was something else other than genuine uplifting of our people, of Black folks at the time, and there was a different game to it. So one of the things that I recognize under the sovereignty movement is something very similar. They would take certain cases and the ways that certain laws read, and they would misinterpret it, or even not just that, but certain decisions with the Supreme Court. And they would literally insert things or misinterpret things, or just didn't have an understanding of it. But
and I'm a witness to that.
Yeah, you can see that there were people that inserted things into that didn't exist, that weren't. They're like, they made this decision and such, and you go to read, and it's like, well, wait a minute, this is not what it says. Like, so they're making stuff up, and then they're giving people references to give them a conditioning, conditioning their minds to say, hey, this is what you have to fight, and then creating an enemy for them. And so that was one of the things that I ultimately recognized about sovereignty. But now there were benefits to both things.
Yes.
And that was, first off, self-identity, knowing where, who and where I come from, knowing how I got here, knowing the truth about how I got here.
No doubt.
But I mean, the truth about how I got here.
Truth shall set you free.
Yeah, it wasn't just white folks going into Africa stealing us. So it wasn't like that. It's not black and white like that. There were Arabs that were taking us. There were Africans that were, selling other tribes. And yes, there were wars that were also fought to try and stop slavery in the mainland of Africa. And hell, they fought one here to stop it. So regardless of what we may think about their true intentions, the point is many people lost their lives for my family members, my ancestors, to get out of bondage. And I have to appreciate that. I have to at least acknowledge and say, regardless of what your intent was, thank you. You know what I mean? And that's what the revolution, that's what I saw the revolution didn't acknowledge. Now, again, I get it. People have to understand that governments and corporations are made of people.
Yes.
People are, they're faulty. We have faults. We're never going to be perfect. We're going to have corruption inside of us. So they mentioned talk about it. There's, the good thing about the sovereignty movement is it really got me to understand law. And remember, my background is I went to school, and back when I went to college back in the day, it was pre-law was still a subject, preparing to go to law school before I dropped out.
Got you.
I was always interested in law, especially when I went into the military as an MP. I had to learn the rules because I saw there, and that's one thing that got me into the revolution, is that one of the first things I saw was one of the most blatant, racist situations. And I was like, well, what the hell? And you just everybody's good with this. But then I realized that there was a complaint about it, but there were whispers instead of complaints.
Got you.
No one was bold enough to stand up, but I was amazed at that. But anyway.
No, that's a good point. No, that's a great point, because that's one of the things I wanted to journey in with you on, get you on a show, and I wanted you to talk about your military experience, because it does connect a lot of brothers and sisters who actually tune in to the shows, the You Are the Gyms, the Tenacious Mind Thrive,
right?
It's an understanding too, because the one thing I gotta say too, bro, you keep it so real. That's what I love about you, Zach. All my mentors, y'all keep it 100. That's the thing I love about it, because life just makes more sense. And I was intend to I'm building on this when we was doing all the research, and you was already finding the crazy shit that was going on within the laws anyway. But then I started getting connected to it, looking for certain things. And I remember when we went into the library, the law library out there in Kent.
Oh yeah, down at
yeah. And swear you not, brothers and sisters, we would be there for hours, literally digging in them books, digging in all types of law. But that's why it's tripped me out, all the lessons we've been through. Because I mean, now I'm looking for certain terminology, certain things that change, you know, when we're looking at individual, you know, or certain things, even a citizen, when you're breaking down those old terms that we used to go into. But it was interesting when we was looking in them books and we were seeing how the laws were phrased different, how they was utilizing certain terminology, what they insert in the newer books than when we dig deeper into the older books, because we was picking up the 1800 stuff, you know what I'm saying, the laws, and figuring out what was going on and how this worked and how they just been way off on the constitutional law.
Oh yeah, they it's amazing how big the disconnect is from the various the state Supreme Courts and the federal Supreme Court to each of the state's own constitutions and the federal constitution. I mean, for example, Washington's what we would call the Second Amendment, their clause that references the Second Amendment, or is I guess the mirror of the second, is much stronger than the Second Amendment of the federal, but they won't uphold it like that. So it's free speech, but they won't uphold it like that, and they've acknowledged it. So there's various parts of it. I mean, you go into the preamble. What's the purpose of government?
I know.
But one of the most tyrannical governments in the country is Washington's government.
Washington State. That's Washington State. Yeah.
Washington State's government is one.
That's why they so hard. I mean, even with the COVID mandates and all that crazy shit that was going on, they was incorporating crazy stuff. What I didn't think they would even do. Keep it real with you. I mean, but see, this is a thing, and you bring me back, or something you always talked about when we always engage in conversation, is rites of passage. It's always been a rites of passage, even our journey together. Like certain things I'm learning are things I can kind of reflect back, even though I haven't been as interested in, but when since I'm navigating, this is the thing about wisdom. Now you can navigate. So now you have options. You can stop over here to Honolulu. You can stop over here to Panama. You can stop. You kind of see what I'm saying? Because now you got options, and now you know what's going on, even with these particular laws, or being imprisoned. You know what I'm saying? Being in prison, because that's basically what we are caught up in. And this is a metaphor, in our phones, in our computer, in our, you feel what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy. But
that's part of that blue pill stuff, man. And people don't understand that. People don't understand. They think that the red pill is just about MGTOW, men walking away or whatever, and the differences between male and females, and even, but you got to understand, the red pill is about reality. I mean, it's lifeblood. Blood. What's blue blood? Blue blood is when somebody dies, and then there's no longer any oxygen in their, in their blood.
Yeah, keeping it 100. Yeah,
and that's you being asleep. Death is the cousin of sleep, right? Or sleep is the cousin of death. So it's all metaphoric. And what people have to understand, is a reality. When you actually look at what's going on, what you're doing, and what you're interpreting, that's not real. And you're allowing yourself to be programmed.
Big time.
For example, circular logic, there's no such thing. It's non-logical. Circular logic is actually non-logical. It shouldn't have logic in the sense. The same thing with the sovereignty movement. There's no such thing. You might be autonomous, but only as a group can you be sovereign, because you can't determine sovereignty is about determining what someone else can and can't do. Autonomy is about determining what you can and can't do. So you can't be sovereign and say, hey, I'm American. That just means you're trying to control other folks. You know what I mean? Come on. For example, we like to do one of the part of the sovereign movement with Black folks is the Moors, and that was the craziest thing to me. Yeah. I said, you do realize that Morocco has a king, right? You do realize that Moors are from Morocco, and Morocco has a king. You cannot be Moorish sovereign. You can't. It's impossible. What are you talking about? So, and unfortunately, that same dynamic of us being tricked into things, we're being used in this current society right now. We are being used. Do you remember who was the first celebrated, and people are going to call this transphobic, but without I don't care. Who was the first celebrated transvestite?
Right. RuPaul, far as I recall.
RuPaul, exactly
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
And nobody really picked up on that. They tried because they had that movie where
That little show or something they put
it
out.
was remember it was some movie, I never watched it, but Patrick Swayze, I think it was Vin Rain.
Oh yeah, yeah.
They all
I remember that some
did the
shit like
cross-dressing
that.
thing or
Yeah.
whatever. And so they tried it, but a lot of other cultures just wouldn't pick it up. Only recently, because of this tail end of or I should say the fourth phase of the feminist movement, that it started including the LGBT plus, as they call it now. And then also remember with BLM where they were trying to connect homosexuality and transgenderism to the Black movement. And no, they're two different things completely.
Yeah,
one is about behavior, you know what I'm saying, and the other is about, you know, respect and dignity. So cut that mess out.
Yeah, you're right. Good point. Great point.
But anyway, that was, if you notice, my point is that they're using us and we don't understand that. LBJ said, Lyndon B. Johnson said, we're gonna have them niggas voting Democrat for the next 400 years, 200 years, whatever he said. I can't remember if it was 200 or 400 years. And we still let that stuff go. We ignore it. And not only do we ignore it, but they hide it. The liberals hide it from us. And then they'll turn around and tell you, if you don't vote for me, you ain't Black. What? Okay, all right.
Eye openers. See, that's the thing too, and that's where the eye openers. That's where we're not learning anything because we so caught up with all this bullshit, even with this transgender bullshit. Don't take me wrong. What they need to do is take the transgenders and let them compete against themselves. Stop having them in all the.
Thank you.
A man's obviously.
Well, here's the thing: you can let them compete against men if you want to. Exactly. You can let them compete against men if you want to. That's a woman trying to transfer over to a man. Go ahead and compete with men. Go play male soccer, football, basketball, baseball. Go ahead, because that's the top. That's the elite. But males that are going to female, I don't care what you say. You don't for anybody to say that they're equal. They do not understand biology. There's a big difference between male and female bodies, muscular, skeletal systems, muscular systems. There's a big difference.
Testosterone levels.
Yeah, and I don't care. And here's the thing: it's not just about testosterone. It's really
I know. It's deeper. That's not the only. It's deeper. Yeah.
That's not the only masculine hormone thing that builds our masculinity. Is my
yes.
So people say, "Well, I'm taking down your test." What's that got to do with anything? You're still having an advantage over that woman.
Exactly.
And so, and again, we're talking about a reality, right? This is the thing where I say we're so willing to accept something that's not based in reality. How do you know that you feel like a woman? How do you know?
Yeah, great point.
How do you know you feel like a man? You might feel feminine, but that doesn't mean you feel like a woman, because not all women are feminine. And you might feel masculine as a woman and feel like you feel like a man. No, that's not, because not all men are masculine. So you don't know, you have no point of reference is what I'm getting at.
Yes.
Anyway, going back to the sovereignty and the revolution movement, the Black Revolution movement, I asked questions, and I saw when I started asking questions and not anticipating an expected answer or desired answer and just accepting what the truth is, I saw through them, and I saw that both of them were essentially time wasters. They're essentially now, again, like I said, it's not that there's not truth in some of their principles and some of the aspects of the movement, but overall they don't have an end game. They don't have not an appropriate end game. For example, I got daughters, right? I got sons and I got daughters, but I got daughters. Why would I want my daughters to be a part of, even my sons, but why would I want them to be a part of a system that is significantly higher risk they could end up human traffic victims?
Yes.
If you knock down a civilization and you go into chaos, or where the police can't respond, or the threat of police can't respond, or that I don't have I have to stay home constantly to make sure that my family's protected. Otherwise, just like back in the old West, back on the frontier, if you left home for too long, you could come back home and all your family could be gone. That's what when they say anarchy, that's what pure anarchy is. You can't leave your homestead, because if you do, your family could be gone. So when they say that they want to go to Marxism, or when they say they want anarchy, what? How does either of those benefit us? It just there's no benefit to that. I don't understand how that helps. Well, it puts us all in the same playing field. No, it doesn't. It makes everything worse, because we have nothing to aspire to then.
Yeah, that's the thing I don't think they be paying attention to
I think
in
some do.
general.
I
Yeah.
think if you include feminism, then it becomes understandable because feminism wants revenge. Especially fourth wave women wants revenge more than it wants justice because they got
Yeah,
justice.
yeah.
They got equality and justice a long time ago.
That brings me to a subject that I think we sociologists and I think psychologists kind of miss out on. It's environment, our environments. We don't even think about how influential our environments are.
Yeah,
And
tell the truth.
that's kind of like just to pinpoint every element of what we're talking about here, because I think that really has to do with your influential background.
Big time.
Who's inspiring you, what kind of pushing you, because we tend to already have a certain energy in us, just want more, that we want more, that we want to be better, that we want to improve, you know what I'm saying?
Well,
And
you had
that's
coaches, you had coaches that drove you to be the best wrestler, the best athlete, best football player, best tackler, and that stuck with you.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing, your father putting you in the putting you in the gym. You had that environment that sets you in that regard.
And that makes so much, yeah. And plus it makes, because you do get that no pain, no gain type mentality anyway. Mm-hmm. When you think about it, don't take me wrong, especially if you push it, and that's the mentality. You just push through it. Okay, what I got to do? Because I've been, and a lot of people don't know this about me, but I've been homeless, and I'm not proud of that. But at the same time, I know what it takes and I know what it don't take, if that makes sense. I learned my lesson.
Yeah, that's deep. That's deep. And so that tells me that you can learn from your failures, from your setbacks.
Exactly.
Like to call them failures because they're lessons. They're just hard lessons.
Yes. Yes. And I think a lot of us give up because we don't have really no support system. You know what I'm saying? Don't take me wrong. The only thing I was really looking forward to when I went to my little meets and stuff, and I'm wrestling and I got these big meets and stuff, I'm taking first, I'm killing the game. You know what I'm saying? I loved when my brothers was in the house, because then I really took it to a whole other level. Yeah, you see what I'm saying? But I didn't really care about my dad being there or my mom. It was like, but my inspiration was more self-motivated too. That's another thing I think why I've been the way I've been, because I'm like, every day I'm like, how can I reinvent myself? Literally every day is just like pushing me, like, you got this.
Well, let me ask you a question. What made you more inspired by your peers, your friends, and your brothers than your parents? Just curious.
I think it was because my brothers was like there from day one. You know what I'm saying? And we went through some shit together.
Oh, you mean they went through it with you together?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So you see what I'm saying? So they could respect my journey and could respect my win. Even though one thing I got to say about my brothers, when you, like your brothers, when y'all dominating the high schools, when y'all dominating the courts, the basketball courts, the football courts, the track meet, whatever, and don't have an ego connected to it. That's one of the things I got to say about me and my brothers. We was winning a whole bunch of shit, right? First, this, that, and the third, but we never had the ego. And I think that's where it tends to kind of destroy the whole element of what you truly can have. And I think that, because really, keep it real with you, even with brothers I know who was like the superstar, now I'm looking at them, talking to them, and it's like they're not physically active anymore, lost all their tenacity, and it's crazy. I think it just because of that mentality of the egotistical type of mindset, I guess. I don't know.
Well, no, I think you hit it on the head when I think more specifically you're talking about people who have a natural talent and they develop faster than others, and so they develop what's a natural appearing talent, speed or whatever the case is, and then later on, for example, I remember can't remember his name, but he was fast, but he didn't like to practice, and then it came to his senior year, and he got beat because there were people that were working. And I remember also one of the biggest rivalries in my high school at the time, or I shouldn't say in my high school, but actually she ran a woman named Mallory Ivy, or a girl at the time, was a phenom sprinter. She came in as a freshman, ran an 11.7. Thing is, from her freshman all the way up to her senior year, she never improved from that. And there was a girl who went to another school named Denise Lucas. And Denise Lucas was like Yeah, Mallory used to always get her, but it came state senior year, Denise Lucas, and I knew Denise because I knew her, or actually her younger brother was friends with my brother, and so that's how I got to actually meet her. I met her at a track meet too. She's a real nice lady. And I remember senior year, come that 100 and that 200, she snatched Mallory down, and that was about that hard work. That was that mentality.
Yes.
I'm gonna get you. I'm gonna step closer, another step closer. Okay, I'm even with you. Now I'm about to pass you. And I do remember that Mallory used to take a lot of days off.
Oh, wow. Wow.
I remember that. She would take some days off, and she just, like I said, she just didn't improve. And it's not that she didn't work hard. Don't get me wrong. Some of those were injuries, and I don't know her personal life and what was going on, so I couldn't tell you.
Yeah. And usually that's the key. Usually that's one of the big indicators to what was going on in their life, because I have an experience like that too. When my sophomore year, I got beat by this young gentleman at the time. So going through my junior year, then my senior year, we came back and we met up each other again at 125. So remind you, we was wrestling at 112 once upon a time. Then we move up to 125 our senior year. And I knew, and I think everybody knew, I was going to come in there and kill this dude. Similar, but it was hard work. That's another thing. Hard, smart work. Let me say it like that. Hard, smart work. Because that's a thing we don't hear about. Smart and hard is never really in the picture with each other.
Yeah,
but
you can work hard and tear yourself down.
Exactly. I've done that. And a lot of people do. And I've seen you through it. I've seen you go through it. So I know.
Right. I remember when I ran overseas, one of the craziest things I did, man, you don't know what you don't know, but I used to run. So I was in the military, but I ran for Heidelberg University, but I also coached the Patrick Henry High School track team.
Okay.
And I coached the community military team. We had a community military team as well.
Oh, nice.
I would actually do workouts at each one of them. So I'm working out 3 times a day, bro. You can't do that and not eventually, break yourself down because you're not giving yourself enough rest. But as far as what you're talking about, we were intentionally doing that, but you're right. Sometimes when you push yourself too hard, that's where that no pain, no gain comes from. You push yourself too hard, you push your limit. Sometimes your body pushes back.
Yeah, and for sure. Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead, man.
No, it's definitely that. And that's the thing too, even like explaining to my mate just about how progression, doing exercise that's going to progress my strength, or just going to progress even the motion or the energy of the motion. You know what I'm saying? Because it's usually visualization, right? You visualizing yourself doing a handstand push-up. You know what I'm saying? And as you working with those particular exercises, it may take you a few months, so be it. The whole point is mastering that particular exercise. That's really the key. That's another thing I think we don't really think about. That's why I'm really big on a lot of repetitions with when I first bring in a client and they want a weight loss. Here, let's get your body used to let's build the technique, let's build the skill, let's get everything in order first, what to look for. Then about time you get to the gym, you like, okay, I see how that bicep press or bicep curl works now, and what kind of muscle it's focusing on, because it's not just one part of the muscle, it's that whole limb, really. Keep it real with you, because it's all activated. That's another thing that's what I don't like about the industry too. I mean, they always trying to pinpoint where your abs and this. No, your abs are already there. You just got to get in that kitchen. You got to stop. That's all it is. Because it's just, since I have really focused in on my nutrition, what I put in my body, and I'm getting better and better every time. Even like my mate, I'm always improving. Let me get some of that sauerkraut. Let me get some of that kimchi. Let me start adding these values. Okay, now apple cider vinegar. That's part of my, not saying I'm doing this every day, because I don't want to do it every day. That's one of the other things I think we got screwed up with the supplements. We're taking these supplements every day, even though they're in your body at least 10 days at the longest before it goes away. You feel what I'm saying? you know, but it's an understanding what these companies got us doing, consumption, you know, and I get that. I mean,
I want to separate us from our money, but you hit it on the head when you said smart and, you know, work smart and hard. Smart and hard work. We got to bring that together.
You know,
as you
and you got to challenge your body too. That's another thing too. And you got to challenge yourself. That's the metaphor with even the movement we was involved. We taking care of ourselves. It wasn't no time you wouldn't see Heru and Nazir working out. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, and putting the work in. I mean, literally, we running 40s, we doing all kinds of shit up in. Yeah, see, and that's the thing.
I remember some of our crazy workouts. Go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. This brother throwing up and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah. Hey, I went through that cycle for a minute too, and I didn't understand that. But here was the thing: I had to go back and figure out what was going on, which I did. I was deficient in certain things, and that's why when I start, no matter how hard I work, I was like, you know what? I got to the point where let's just get it over with, let it out, and then get back to work. You mentioned something earlier about visualization. How do you, is that a focus of yours when you try something new, when you meditate, you know, when
yes.
you visualization?
Yes, that's actually a great point. What I have, I'm really, well, let me step back a little bit because I do want to give people some context. I did read a book years ago and it was on visualization. And it was interesting, the concept and understanding, because I knew I had a experience in my senior year when I won that match against that gentleman that we came together again. I visualized myself raising my hand up, getting my hand raised up. You know what I'm saying? And trust me, I use this metaphor, but this metaphor makes so much sense. We all remember the classic movie Bloodsport.
Oh yeah.
When Van Damme was under scrutiny, he had that blindfold on and he had to follow his instinct. Right. You know what I'm saying? And basically that was basically what I was in. I was in the zone that much. The only person who could break that zone was my coach. That was the only voice I heard. But other than that, I didn't hear nothing, brother. I was so into that flow, as Chajowski or whatever his name is. He talks about that flow, being in that flow. I was on that flow, bro. So I do understand it, and I have been able to master it over the years. Why it's keeping me with that commitment, keeping me with that tenacious mind, as the brother would say, right. Just to kind of keep that mindset and focus in on what we're trying to achieve, or not even achieving, because the achievement is not even the end result. You kind of feel me? Yeah, that's the thing.
Because once you achieve it, you're moving on to the next thing. So it's always something.
And you always, that's the thing, even with me too. I notice I'm always like, I'm so futuristic. I'm like, but I gotta set this up, set that up, boom, boom, boom. You know, you planning, but then at the same time, kind of talking about your subject matter you talked about on your last podcast show, about the planning is not even planned correctly. And how I visualize, this is a key thing, how I do a lot of visualization anyway. I like writing stuff and putting it up on the walls in my room or in my gym or wherever I'm at. And usually it triggers certain things within me. I do these montages with all these pictures, just kind of influence. Okay, I want this land. I want to, you know, my visualization. You see what I'm saying? My visualization techniques that been helping me keep focus on what the end result is, or not necessarily the end result.
It helps you keep your vision.
Yeah, exactly. And plus, with me, it's more about touching people, healing people, getting people to question their situation, or how can I become better? I'm not this brother. I don't want nobody to idolize me or worship me, none of that shit. You know, I'm sure I got plenty of haters out there, but at the same time, I want them to love too. I want to give them the love too. That's the key thing. And I think even like being in these formats, you know, sharing with you, because we always have some great conversations, you know, when we engage in certain things and talk about certain issues. So it's like a given. I think when you outgrown certain things, you tend to move on. Because I don't think we have we ever had an argument? I don't even think we ever had no argument.
It wasn't, if we've ever had anything that we would have been more of a disagreement, and then come to an understanding. It wouldn't have been an argument. So yeah, I can't.
Yeah. And we've been, what, 2 decades down already?
Yeah, man.
Yeah, 2 decades,
I think
22.
2002. Yeah,
Yeah,
2002.
2002.
Yep.
You know, so and to me, it's all about, that's what I do enjoy about you, because you always moving forward too. You up on the next, next on the next thing. And the cool thing, not next thing, I don't mean it that way, but
Well, I know what you mean.
What's happening, what's actually
move
happening. You're
forward.
conscious of what's going on around you, with you and your family. Because I mean, that's the important element. You know, and that's the thing with me too. I'm like, how can I better myself? How can I, not just myself, but my surroundings? Let me start growing a garden. You know, let me start doing certain things that's actually going to give more value to people. That's why my forums be so long on the episodes. Because I'm like, because I want to get people to look. Let me give you the missing chunks up in there. Mm-hmm. Connect them dots a little bit. Right. And I'm connecting dots from my experience, what I have journeyed into, what I have seen behind the jail cell, or whatever the case may be. But at the same time, getting the understanding, that's really where it comes down to, and being committed and being disciplined.
Well, and then you, like you said, you keep hitting that on the head with the committed, committed and disciplined. You got to stay disciplined to what you've committed to. And that starts with you visualizing what it is that you want, so that you can know what it is that you're committing to and understand your why, because that wall is inevitable. There's never anything that you want to achieve, that's of any significance, where you're not going to run into some trouble.
Big time.
Yeah. As they say, that crystal staircase is going to get muddied and scratched and beat up in all kinds of ways, but you still got to climb it.
Yes, regardless. Yeah, stairway to hell. What? Stairway to hell or stairway to heaven.
Stairway to heaven.
Jacob's ladder. Was that you talking about the Jacob's ladder, or that was Coffrey?
We've talked about
the metaphor. I think you mentioned.
Yeah, I think you mentioned ladder several times.
Yeah, and that's
what that crystal staircase is in reference to.
Yeah, that's what I figured. But see, and that's the funny thing too. And I hope you do this too on your show. Share your vision on that particular idea book you wanted to write, with all the different characters that was portraying certain things. I think you need to share that on the show, because that would definitely be that's some great material. That's another thing. You know what I'm saying? As far as movie material, I'm sure a lot of people would like to watch something.
You know what? It's funny. I set that aside because I set it aside because I had to finish up another project.
You should. I think you should. And I think you should share it on your platform. You know what I'm saying? Give people ideas, because then you got inspirational people. They'll come and have artwork done for you and be like, hey, you want to use this for your book? And I mean, it's so many opportunities. That's another thing. When you don't, and don't take me wrong, I work on being transparent. That's another characteristic I think you get as an athlete back in the day. Work on transparency. And I'm not saying I got to be friends with everybody, and everybody I meet, I'm great and happy, boo, boo, boo. No, because I think I'm very genuine. This is just me. I think I'm very genuine. There's no ego or nothing connected to that, but I know what I can do. I'm not afraid to engage. Okay, we're going to fight. Let's get in there. Let's do what we need to do. Okay, I mean, don't kill a brother if you some super martial artist.
Right.
I mean, certain things happen. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But I'm not afraid to engage in that type of understanding. And I think that is one of the problems our society is having, because we're fearful. You know what I'm saying? All the stuff.
No, go ahead. No, let you finish.
No, I'm just saying, all the stuff that's actually been happening in the last 2 years, and the 2 years is nothing really when I think about it, because all this stuff, we recognized this back in 2009, 2010, all the fear, the psychosis. And when you got David Icke and all these guys still around telling you literally what's been going on, the Joseph Maxwell, it's all there. That's just my point.
No, I agree. I think, unfortunately, some of those people, like you mentioned, Maxwell, he may have been sincere, but here's the problem that I have with is people like him that actually take us the wrong way. They take an idea on something and they run with it either too far or they run the wrong, and they're sabotage.
Extremes.
And the reason I say that, is because he used to use word association. Remember the sun being the sun,
yes,
being the SON. But English is one of the only languages that those words are similar in. I, and things of that nature. When you go to Spanish, when you go to German, you go to ancient Greece, you go to ancient Egyptian, if you speak whichever language that you choose to speak, ancient Aramaic and so on and so forth, they're not as close in association. So I caught him on a few of those things as far as the link, and that's that neurolinguistic programming that he would use.
Yes.
And one of the reasons I wanted to get trained in that area is so that I could catch things like that, especially when Dr. York used to teach things about tricknology and how media, not just media, but how the media overall tricks you or conditions your mind into believing or thinking in a certain pattern or a certain way. Because you can actually read a lot by a person by how they talk. Like in here, I haven't heard you much say you can't do anything.
Oh,
right?
That's not in the vocab.
That's right. So you hear a lot of people when they speak, they use those types of phrases, and you can tell an overarching you can have an overarching assessment of their personality or their mindset by the words that they use, by their body language, by the language that they use and how they speak to people. So anyway, point is, I want to get back to something real quick because you mentioned about visualization.
Yes.
And I know that was some time ago that we mentioned that. When you do visualization and you have your vision board and you do your meditations, you envision yourself standing up, do you also recognize the feeling that you would have when you win, how exuberant you would be, or do you just visualize? Do you just have
Great question. That's a great question. And I'm pretty accurate with it. Yes, I do that. I do feel the feeling. I do know the feeling, but you know what's in me? Like I told you, it's some drive within me that say you can do it better. I'm brother, and I've been trying to explain this on my shows because it's very unique because I have a lot of synchronicities too. You know what I'm saying? And I'm able to recognize synchronicities. Yeah. Now we familiar with that, certain things that happens, like certain dualities, I would say dualities that happens the same time at kind of the same environment or section where you're recognizing it like, okay, now it's speaking to me. Something's going on. What is the lesson?
I just want a little bit clarification right there.
Okay.
I think this is what you're saying, and I want to make sure that I understand it. And if anybody's listening, make sure, and they may. So, but do you mean like when you intend on doing something, you move forward, how things kind of fall into play? How like when you say, you wanted to be dude, your coach improved his coaching, or you got a better coach, and I'm not saying that you switch coaches, I don't know, but things started to also happen in accordance to help you along or to guide you along as stepping stones along that way.
Yes. Okay. Perfect. That's perfect. Because it's actually been, and it's funny because what they say, the teacher will come.
Yes, that's what I was
brother. And it's been, and I just been in tune with it. That's why you see the brother be moving all the time. Because I'm in tune with it. Okay, it's time for you to go down to Florida. Go change your life. And look what came out of that. My yoga, reflexology.
Right. That's true indeed.
And the beautiful relationship with Arlette. So it's like I said, certain things are timed and certain things work for a reason. Certain people are in and out your life for a reason. It's been a reason why we've been long-term brothers. Literally long-term brothers. It's like I'm still connected. I still want to know too. How's the family? What's going on? Yeah. You know what I'm saying? You good? What can I do? That's the mentality. And I think when you pay attention to it, certain things work out more positive. I mean, the universe know I don't want to take no poke in the arm from somebody else I don't know, and they giving me something I don't know what it is. I mean, and the universe playing that out. He's like, this is not going to happen. You're going to navigate, but you're going to have options.
Right.
Don't make up your mind too quick. Get your paper right. Get certain things in order first before you make it. And I'm not saying I'm getting to that analogy of one of the greats had said it. Andrew Carnegie. He said, get one basket, put some eggs up in there and master that motherfucker.
Yeah.
And then you can start divvying out some things and doing this and doing that. That's what I'm saying. I want to be one of them personal trainers or personal coaches where you look at, you be like, man, I envy that body and I envy that mind.
Right.
You feel me?
Well,
That's
you want
that's the
something for your
mind.
clients to be able to ascribe to. And so that I understand the
Exactly.
mentality of when people go to a personal trainer and that personal trainer doesn't seem like they're together. They have some, regardless of whether they may now, and sometimes that's perception because again, you can have an endurance athlete who may not be as lean,
Chiseled, yes,
as
yes.
chiseled and lean, he may be more thinner, right? He actually be
Mhm.
more lean than he is chiseled, but they're looking at him as, hey, shouldn't you have muscles? Shouldn't you have bigger muscles? He's a different type of athlete. He's a different type of trainer, but he still understands, he or she still understands what you need by assessing you for your situation.
And key, because we all need coaches.
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't care whoever, what kind of skill level you. I like Michael Bolt. That brother got a coach.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
He's fast, one of
he
the
would have
fastest
never.
in the world.
I don't know of any high achieving athlete that would have ever gotten to where they've gotten without a coach.
Come on.
And here's the other thing: it's not just a physical coach, but they have even mental coaches. Russell Wilson's this past year, his mental coach or mental conditioning coach died, passed away. So people on that level, when I say on that level, professional levels across the world, and it's not even just them, it's high achieving executive leaders in corporate America. They have executive coaches. So
Yes,
I don't know of
yes.
anybody that is not successful or a high achiever in that regard that doesn't have some type of coach. I have multiple. I have a business strategist, Heru that I love his strategies when I've never had a bad session with him. I have
Nice.
life coaches, or a life coach in the sense where I have some of the actually where I have a friend who I've met who is so wise in his own in life and perspective and in purviews, perspectives, I should say, like I just said, that I use them as a coach, as advisors in that regard. So, and that's one of the things good to have people around you in your network that you respect enough to listen to and can see from various perspectives as opposed to just their own, but also have a perspective that you respect.
Yes. Yes.
And that's one of the reasons I think, again, we've been friends for so long.
Yeah, for sure.
We both have that respect for each other.
Yeah, I couldn't even get you out my mind if I wanted to. I was telling Dr. Boss, I was like, this brother has with the law stuff. That's all I think about is you. That's why I'm like, I mean, not just that aspect. Don't take me even my athleticism, with the speed training and stuff and all the different techniques that you kind of showed me within the time we did do our stuff together, even weightlifting, stuff like that. Right. So it's kind of interesting just going into these different modes. Everybody's a teacher, right? Everybody's somewhat a teacher, but it's certain things that's going to influence you and it's certain things that's not going to. Think about it. How many teachers do you remember and how many teachers you don't remember?
Oh, yeah. I think about
you
that.
You see what I'm saying? Yeah.
So the ones that had the most profound effect.
Exactly. I mean, I could tell you Mr. Klepek, Miss Klepek, the Richies, I mean, and many other names I could have named out here that really had a big influence on me. The Flemings, the Murphys, just certain things like that. But then as other people that didn't play a part or wasn't no type of, don't even come to your memory. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. That's crazy. But I know, like, even with my coaches, when I think about my coaches, I'm like, all of them was like superstars. They literally created an opportunity for me to be a marvel. You see what I'm saying? And that's the funny thing, even engaging with them today, I'm like, I still think I'm like, man, you don't even know what you had done, just your influence and being a more manifestation for them to see. Look, okay, he's a great citizen, he's American citizen, and he loves America. But at the same time, he questions everything. Don't take me wrong. I question everything, even when we was working together. Come on.
Oh, yeah.
But
go ahead.
No, one thing I got to say, though, but I always believed in you. I don't use that word too often, but that believing word, and the things you did, because you always showed me that, okay, here, I know what I'm talking about. I see it. And then I'm going to the information and I'm reading it. And it's the same effect of Brother Boz when we're talking about stem cells, what it's able to do, how it's able to connect with people and really transform their life, regenerating, right?
Right.
literally regenerate. So I'm tripping because I'm like, okay, if we have all this particular, muscle building products, this and that, not, I don't mean products, but processes.
Oh yeah.
Why are we using steroids? Why are we using stuff that is not good for our bodies? What does that psychology look like?
Yeah, well, I mean, remember that question, the major question has been asked to almost every athlete with a dream is that if I could give you a magic pill and you achieve everything that you've ever wanted, or you become an Olympian over for the next 5 years, but at the end of that 5 years, you're done. Your life, you die. How many people would take it? And the majority of people, and if I recall correctly, the number was in the 90s, 90% higher, 90 percentile
Wow.
would take it. But when they ask, okay, so now what if same thing, but you only get 1 year, but you go out on top? It was still in the 90s, if I recall correctly, lower 90s, that would still accept that because
Wow.
they wanted it that bad. And so, when somebody's that committed, they will sacrifice everything. That's why you have some people that, make a lot of money right now, and they've said on air, I make too much money not to take the vaccine. Okay, that's the reason you decided to take it. And again, for those that take it, fine, that's your choice, but don't make anybody else that choose otherwise.
That's their choice.
They don't have the same situation. And if you
Mhm.
recall, what they were doing is trying to not then change the scenario by changing the definition of vaccine, by changing the definition of gain of function, by changing all these different
processes.
things, right? And then not wanting to tell the truth to people of what was in it, and then even cutting the study off early and not taking everybody in consideration. So I'm like,
because they knew, they knew,
like I said,
they know
well,
what's
here's the
going
thing.
on.
We know, and this again goes with this goes with the fitness industry. This goes with many. Money rules. Money is king. And unfortunately,
follow the paper.
we have that philosophy between our government and the pharmaceutical industry. That's the unfortunate part.
The industry that was created. A book I like to holler out on this show. Excuse, not holler, but
go ahead.
Death by Diet. Death by Diet. It's talking about the medical industry and the ramifications and the things that go on that we really don't know. The public really don't know, even though this book's been around since '96. The problem is, it's kind of like the AIDS. When that book you was talking about the AIDS, I think why we would never cure AIDS or something like that.
Right.
A book, I think you mentioned that to me a long time ago, and I had found it on Amazon. They wanted like $600 for it. I was like, wow, that book must have been some serious information going on. Some serious information. But the whole point is really getting a more understanding, what we do have out here, what's available, and really understanding, we know they've been lying to us, right? 9/11 proved that.
Well, we knew that before that,
brother. I mean, come on, and it's funny too, because I think about right till this day. You were showing me that video at your mother-in-law's and father-in-law's house. We went over there, and you were showing me the boring movie about how they was proving that it was an inside job.
Oh yeah, when they
that's a long time. That was a long
ago,
time. 2000, that was 2002, 2003, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
Early years.
and people try and send out a lot of, they try to do a lot of debunking and stuff like that. But here's the thing. There's a lot of things that happen there you can't question, or excuse me, that still have questions that you can't answer. And they haven't happened since. I'm still amazed that we saw 2 buildings fall at free fall, and everybody still thinks that was natural. And then a building that just collapsed from the middle to out, that collapsed on itself and on its own footprint from a fire. Okay, but here's the thing: the biggest thing is what resulted from that. Government spending more money in creating more security. And security, remember, more security, or excuse me, the more you have a propensity or desire for security and safety, the less freedom you have. And we have a TSA organization that now we have to show up for our planes, or for our trips. We have to show up 2 hours in advance. And people don't understand that that's a large waste of time and resources. I'm talking about, and it's just to employ more people. It really is. It's to make the government, federal government, one of the larger employers, spend more tax monies, and it's also to condition us to sacrifice freedoms.
There we go. That's
the one thing you mentioned earlier.
There we go.
We mentioned earlier, we started talking about sovereignty and the revolution, and remember I asked, what's the end game? I decided a long time ago that I wanted to accept not the flag. I'm not going to pledge allegiance to a flag, but I will accept and agree to certain principles. And if your principles are based on exactly these things, the right to the rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, meaning that you have the right to go after opportunities that you don't have a right to the outcome, but you have a right to at least try to get what you want. You have the right, the principal freedoms of this. I can accept those and I can agree with you on those. But here's the problem with dedicating yourself to a flag or to an idol, is that if they move the principles of that idol, or if they say, well, America now stands for this, and that is where everybody should have the equal, not just equal opportunity, but also equal outcomes. No, I don't agree to that. How is that possible?
Yes.
How is that possible? I'm working very hard on a business that I'm not going to mention much about here, but I'm working hard on the opening of business. And we trying to acquire our first properties here. This is February, by the end of next month. And somebody else doing the same thing, they may fail, or they may have different goals than I do. I don't want the same outcome as them. There's some that are satisfied with opening 3 properties and that being it. I'm not interested in just 3 properties. I want to open 9 a year. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And and I'm not interested in the same type of personal training or coaching as someone else. I picked a lot of different certifications so I could mold my own.
And that's the key right there. Yeah, for sure. No, that's the key too, because that's what I'm saying. This is the difference. I can subscribe you all the exercises in the world, give you the nicest workout plan, whatever the case may be. But the real thing I really want to give to you is a personality. I want to give you a characteristic you can build on that creates discipline, that creates commitment, that creates, mental toughness.
Yeah.
When you really put it in perspective, mental toughness, that's all you gotta, not saying you gotta be hard on everything, but you gotta start completing projects.
But that's not, mental toughness is always not about being hard. It's being able
to adjusting.
Yeah.
I would say
and respond.
How you adapt. And that's basically because life is always the lesson, right?
Oh, yeah.
Daily in, daily out. The people you want to talk to, the people you don't want to talk to, people calling you who you don't want to call, it's everywhere. It's everywhere. You know what I'm saying? But the whole point is keeping that peace of mind. I think keeping a peace of mind, the meditation, the focus and the refocusing, staying creative. That's another thing I think we tend to not focus in on too, staying creative. That's what I did love about you too, because all the businesses, all the businesses created, and not just that, just the stuff I've been doing. And I think about just all the lessons we have learned, from marketing to being in the game. You know what I'm saying? That's the thing. Being in the game is just how you adjusted. What are the outcomes that you truly want to do? Because I think one of my games is to the benefit. I don't know if I got to heal a whole bunch of people, or it's just the mindset. When I get more people calling me in and saying, man, I'm inspired by you, or I'm doing this because of you, or whatever. I don't know. That's what gets me high. That's part of what gets me high. That's why I enjoy this engagement.
Understood. Now, I will say this. One of the patterns that I've learned, I've observed about people that become, what do they call it, viral?
Yes.
Or, more popular, like a Joe Rogan and people that they start with a niche. They start with a very small target audience first, and then they become so successful with that audience that more people hear about it, more people learn. Because remember, he was a comedian before he was on Fear Factor, and before he was a comedian, he was a life coach.
Got you.
And before he was a life coach, he was a martial artist. So those are things that, of course, the martial artist things that was him doing it on his own with him and his buddies. But with him being a life coach, he had a certain market that he went after. And even when he was a comedian, when he used to perform on stage, his comedy was for a certain type of audience. It wasn't for everybody, right?
And this is what I've been learning, just to build on that. This is what I've been learning as on a business level, is like focusing on your brand, just focusing on developing you, get your game up. Everything will come. Literally, everything is come as you keep going, everything will just come together. And that's what has been happening for me in the last few years. Has been happening. Everything just been coming together. I've been asking for it. I've been putting it on. You can see it on my goals. You know what I'm saying? It's just about building. Am I ready for multi-millions of dollars? You know what I'm saying? You feel what I'm saying? As far as the mindset. Has the mindset, because it's a mindset as you start building and looking at the figures where, so like, for example, I work at a Home Depot, but the one store I worked at, the most profiting Home Depot in the country, right? So I'm looking at our numbers. I'm thinking, wow, we doing 3.5 million a year, right? A week. That's a week. I'm sorry, 3.5 million a week. Okay. I'm throwing that out, right? Even though this is the past, but now I'm at a smaller store and I'm looking at these numbers. I'm thinking, wow, these are really small numbers. So my mindset is like, I'm thinking big, I'm thinking bigger, right? What's that? The Magic of Thinking Big, that book, old classic.
Magic of Thinking Big.
Yeah, Magic of Thinking Big, classic too. But at the same time, your mind got to be elevated. You gotta graduate, right? The levels, the rites of passages, my brothers and sisters. But it's
so anyway, yeah, that's funny. So go ahead. Accountability.
Accountability. That's basically just taking ownership of who you are. Really. Indeed. Taking ownership of who you are. I mean, and the ability you do have, because I don't think this is another thing we lack. The thing with the exercise, the routines, like you've been mentioning early, routines. It's a routine to your life too. We all should have a blueprint. The blueprint, you got to make some adjustments so you can actually have the best you can bring for that day, or for that day per day, because that's how we measure our days, right?
Well, how important do you think routines are? I think routines set patterns, and patterns are what we're about. So what do you think the importance of a routine?
So a routine, I would say a routine is more of a habit, certain habits that you would add to your life that will betterment, or that will put more healthier options in your life, if that makes sense.
No, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, because you are the habit, you are the gym. You see what I'm saying? You are the discipline. You got to create the mindset of, okay, if I'm not good, nobody else is going to be good around you, because it's the energy, it's the environment too. You see what I'm saying? Yeah, so it all makes sense to me, and especially when you get into like even when I was administrating reflexology, it's the same thing, because it's energy flowing through your body, even though we call it blood, right? But the blood is the spirit, right? The blood is the spirit that navigates, and it splits the Red Sea. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's an understanding too, but then at the same time, bringing it back to who you are, who you becoming. Because
I think you hit a couple of things on the head, that, the blood is the conduit that carries the energy, right?
Yes.
And the other thing is that, and this was when you talked about magnetism, you're attracting, like your likeness. One of the things that in biology that I always found interesting is that at the creation or of conception of human life, the first thing that is established is the heart. And that's the first thing that begins to grow. And the heart has its own independent neurons. If I recall the number correctly, they found that the heart has about 40,000 neuralites in it that are independent and stronger than the brain's connections in itself, or put out, at least has a stronger output of energy in that regard. And that was always amazing to me. So then when they say follow your passions or live with compassion, then that gives a new meaning as to, what redemption is, how to live your life, wanting to serve others. but you have to improve yourself first. So it's like a balance, right? Everything is about balance, that yin, that yang.
Hands down, hands
Right.
down. And that's what we fail to realize. That's why I was connecting the steroids with the SORMs. It's kind of funny, like we're pushing these particular so-called chemicals within our body, right? These chemical connections or these particular cells within our body, but then we don't really think of overuse. We don't think of extremes. That's the funny thing. We never think of extremes. We just, the more we take in, the better. You know what I'm saying? That mindset, that mindset. And I think that's actually connected to the ego, right? When you really start breaking certain things down. But I think that's where these so-called psychosis or psychological triggers are amplified. Okay. You know, and that's my take on it, because I know I'm not an extreme type of brother. Me personally, my personality is not an extreme type of brother. Don't take me certain things I might go to the extreme, but then at certain things, that's where the balance come in, where you're understanding more of your thought, because you're taking time to think of your thoughts.
You're talking about going back into the concepts of, or at least principles of Stoicism, where you
yes
control, reflect.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. I have as a athletic enthusiast or fitness enthusiast, it's interesting because we have all these modalities that keep us healthy, fit. But then on the other end is people like they'll harm their life. We'll go buy all these pharmaceuticals. We'll do that instead of just doing what really your body is naturally should be doing anyway. I think we should be working. I mean, think about it. We didn't have cars 1,000 years ago. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Right. When you really put cars, you know, well, yeah, maybe 1,000 years. Yeah, we probably had some kind of
by the vehicle standards that you're talking about.
Yes, today, yes.
Late 1800s, early 1900s.
Yes. But the point I'm trying to express is like we was more active.
Yes,
we was literally more active.
Well, does that go into, and this is a question because it goes also into our food and so on and so forth. Is that one of the reasons that they find that the male testosterone level is significantly lower than it was 100 years ago?
I think that's got a part. Yeah, I'm sure that is one of the reasons when they're offering it free to the people now.
Testosterone boosters.
Yeah, all kinds of stuff like that. So, I mean, don't take me wrong. And it makes sense to me when the population is being dumbed down, programmed, propagandized, misinformed. It makes so much sense. I mean, just when we think about the 9/11, look what was going on then. And then
and I always tell people too, like right now, people keep talking about what liberals are trying to take away our. I say, you realize that it was a Republican that gave us the Patriot Act, right? George Bush. Yeah, anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, but it's an understanding. But it's an understanding of what's really going on, and it's like we're not facing the obvious. That's the thing. That is. We're not questioning the obvious that's right in front of us.
But you know why? You know why that is? One of the main reasons that is because especially as Americans, we look at experts. And all an expert word means, all the word expert means is somebody that knows a whole lot about very little. We compartmentalize everything. And then what we don't do is we don't compel or at least encourage our experts to work with one another to understand connectivity. We have people that are experts in biology, and then we have people that are experts in psychology, and then we have people that are experts in diets or nutrition, but they don't come together.
Do you think it's the Nobel Peace Prize bullshit?
I think the Nobel Peace Prize is full of shit, but I've thought that for some time, because especially when they gave, and I'm not saying he didn't. Well, I'm not gonna say whether he deserved it or didn't deserve it. But when they gave it to Barack Obama before he did anything, when he first got into the president, I was like, no, you don't give it to him just for being elected. That's not an accomplishment. What is he doing? Because now you know, as excited as I may have been, though I wasn't very excited, but excited as I may have been about Barack Obama, because I knew some things about him prior to, so I wasn't excited as a lot of Black folks. But and seeing that he was the orchestrator of the largest siphoning of Black wealth in American history.
Wow.
I was like, you can't tell me that that's a Black American hero or American Black hero. You can't tell me, you can't sell that to me. Now, I mean, that was literally, you know, prior to the 2000, you remember I was heavy into real estate. Still am, but I was heavy into real estate. I was a real estate agent at the time. So I understood the market and it was an investor. When during that recession, that was the largest transfer of Black wealth away from the Black community in our history, as far as I know. And if somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but it was the largest. But so when people still celebrate him as, you know, the first Black president, which he was, and, you know, Black American savior, come on, man. Understand something, look deeper than the surface.
Most
of the iceberg is below water. So stop.
Indeed.
Go ahead.
Indeed. No, that's on point. And like I said, we always get into this subject matter because it's an interesting subject matter. This is interesting because it's connected to you in general, but you be acting like this is another thing. People really, when you really bring off the mask, when you take off the mask, shit is revealed. You know what I'm saying? You see patterns, the patterns are very corruptified. And don't tell me because you've been around 40 years that you got a quality product. Maybe it's time for you to expire, Henry Ford. Maybe it's time to bring in some new models. You see what I'm saying? It's crazy that we don't the disconnect. That's what tripping.
Well, don't you think that
how disconnected we are, not just as a people, but as the overall human species?
Well, you mentioned something in that regard. So what do you think? Because, I mean, think about the word personality. We all have personalities, right? We were talking about compartmentalization and people being real. I think that goes against our nature, it goes against our brain functionality, the way our brains work, right?
Yes.
Our brains our brains are designed to protect us through our mind, through establishing patterns, through not wanting us to do hard stuff, protecting us from the hard stuff, our emotional reactions from our thoughts or even dreams when we attempt to move things. So when you mention the word, or when you mention that aspect of things about mask or hiding things, that's what the word personality means. Remember, personality comes from, can't remember the Greek word. Yeah, but the Greek root word of personality means mask. It means the persona that you put forth.
There you go.
The persona that you put forth for people to see so that you don't cause harm, so that you protect yourself. So it's like we have a human nature for it, and people are understanding that human nature. When you talk about books, man, there's one book that I have to suggest to people, and it's called The Laws of Human Nature.
Oh, yes.
Book, bro, that was one of the
yes.
profound books, for not just for life, but I mean, well, let me start out by, I started reading it because it was recommended to me for business. You want to understand business? Read The Laws of Human Nature.
Nice.
And I'll tell you, the brother, my advisor, Heru recommended it to me because he says one of the things that he does is when he invests, and he doesn't recommend how people invest. And so this is not a recommendation for you or how to invest or anything like that. This is a recommendation for you to start your research. But he says when he invests in stocks in various companies, he doesn't go by just trends. What he does is he goes by what is occurring at the moment, what is occurring at the time, and how will we respond to those things overall. So for example, one of the biggest things for the last decade or so has been cryptocurrencies, right?
Yeah.
So he says, well, I'm not gonna invest in cryptocurrencies because they're too volatile. We don't know why they are volatile. We don't know what motivates them or incentivizes them to go up and down and so on and so forth. And it's not a country's currency. So he's not willing to do, and he wants to do something. If he's gonna do it, he's usually gonna do it long term. So he understands the mechanisms behind it, that if a country decides to go against it, like Joe Biden is actually now going after creating an executive order to regulate it, China's thinking the same thing. So if that begins to affect it, I don't know what's going to happen. I can't predict the future. But what he would say is that if people are so interested in it, what I'm going to do is I'm going to invest in the companies that invest in the industry mechanisms of it, technology they use to make
the minding.
Yeah, the minding. That's right.
Yeah,
so
minding.
let's say when there's a big push for gun, like there's a big thing that happens, mass shooting or something to that effect. But let's say when something like that happens, when the Las Vegas thing happened, when the guy was shooting out the window, he knew, and by his teachings anyway, you knew that what was going to happen was that they were going to come after guns again. And every time they go after trying to create gun control, a whole bunch of people go out and buy guns. A whole bunch of people go out and buy weapons.
Never fails.
Right. So you know exactly what that means is that means their business is going to pick up, stocks are going to pick up, buy their stocks.
Indeed.
When people push for gold, when people push to go buy gold, when real estate goes down, gold goes up, or precious metals go up. Precious metals go down, oftentimes real estate goes up. So they know that when people are pushing that, what you have to do is not necessarily buy gold in itself or these gold certificates, because those certificates don't do anything for you.
No.
There's somebody else is holding it, but they're telling you, hey, this is alternative to currency, to paper money, but you don't have access to it through
exactly.
itself. So anyway, what he does,
ownership.
What he would consider in that regard would be to go invest in mining companies, and companies that mine for the gold, or to mine for the platinum, or mine for the silver, because they're going to need to buy more equipment to meet the supply.
Yes.
Laws of human nature. Long explanation as well.
Robert Greene. That's Robert Greene. Too.
Robert Greene. Greene. And I'll reread that book as much as I can, because there's a lot of tools to that in that book.
Yeah, because that brother, he's been doing some powerful, that 33 strategies, that 48 laws of power, and many other, even his new stuff is actually pretty compelling. But he had a protege. His name is Ryan Holiday. And Ryan Holiday's stuff is, man, you definitely got to check him out. Ryan Holiday.
What's one any of his works? I don't know that name.
So The Ego is the Enemy.
Oh, David Goggins.
Goggins.
Yeah.
Goggins referenced him too.
Yep.
David Goggins referenced him too, because his stuff is, I'm telling you, his stuff is on point. A lot of people probably not into that type of, stoicism. He pushed that, Marcus Aurelius's, stoicism viewpoints, and just some of his other works too that you kind of sleep on, but at the same time they get you to question some things that you really don't be paying attention to. You know what I'm saying? That's what I do like about even that other guy, Daniel Pink. I like his stuff too.
Didn't he write
Drive? He wrote The Sale. And a few other classics he got. Understanding the Mind, the Duality of the Mind. I was like, yeah, this dude is on point.
So, all right. Well, listen, man, this has been lightning. So tell me a little bit more about where people can reach you, where they can find your items, if you're on a website, your services, where they can just learn more about you and they can reach you.
Okay, so the first place I would just direct you to would be youarethegymlive.com. Yes, that's youarethegymlive.com.
All right.
As well as I'm on the YouTubes, I'm on the Facebooks, and I do Instagram. I got away from Twitter. You talk about protest Twitter. No,
Now, when you say You Are the Gym, spell that, because I know you spell it differently. So
I spell it with a U. Put U, UARETHE, Gym, GYM at gmail.com. Or live. You can put gymlive.com.
Okay.
So but I do get the other one.
YouAreTheGymLive.com.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
There we go. You can always reach me.
And by email, you were saying
the same thing. YouAreTheGym@gmail.com.
There you go. All right.
If you really want to get down and dirty with it, I got 206-659-6382.
Repeat that a little slower for the people.
206-659-6382.
So you kept your Seattle prefix, huh?
Yeah, I kept my it's the best, because they know I'm all nationwide, worldwide. Right, they see that too. Oh, that's Seattle. You know, people, it's funny too how people, they like Seattle, but they don't like Seattle. You can this is what I've been getting from all these Seattle life. And it's funny because you had in Hawaii, you had a lot of people who were Seattle fans, Seattle Seahawks fans. It was kind of, yeah, it's kind of funny how certain places, if it wasn't that, it was San Francisco. You know what I'm saying? All these West Coast teams.
You know, there's two things that I don't like about Seattle. The politics, and the one difference between the one biggest difference, I should say, between North and South, and even maybe back East. And that is, if somebody back South doesn't like you, they let you know. You might have a job to do. They're going to respect you to respect the job to say, hey, we got to cooperate to get this done, but we're not going out to have beers together. That's the one thing that I can respect. What I don't like is up here, where people pretend like they like you and they stab you in the back or they're talking back behind your back. I'm like, come on, man. Why can't we be? I didn't understand that. I did not. Yeah. You know, my roots have always been, if you don't like somebody, don't pretend like you do. But anyway, all right. We're not necessarily ready to end it unless you're ready to go. But, you know, I wanted to make sure that we get that out there so people know how to get a hold of you.
Appreciate that.
Do you want to talk about a little bit about your philosophy anymore?
Yeah, we can go deeper into that. I don't mind sharing that.
You don't have to go too deep. I don't want you to reveal your trade secrets. Right?
Yeah, no, it ain't about
stuff. But
I think no, because I think it's beneficial. I think it's beneficial when you know how the algorithms on Google work. Then you get it. You see what I'm saying? Then you get it, and it's more harmony than bad, if that makes sense. Right. You know what I'm saying? Because you got these people like these so-called haters. If they don't want to see you prospering, okay, or they're basically, I would say the haters are more like they're the fuel. They're literally the fuel because they keep you creative.
Indeed.
And you know what I'm saying?
If you don't have haters, you're not successful.
Exactly. And that's part of success. I would say that's part of it. Because a lot of times you got a lot of celebrities, but are broke. You feel what I'm saying?
Yeah,
they're
people
broke.
Don't understand that.
Yeah, they're broke. They're broke in mind. I think they're broke in mind first.
Yeah.
And then with the other aspect, they're broke because they don't know how to manage their money. Rich dad, poor dad.
Yeah. Well, if you're broke in your mind, you don't know how to manage your money. You're not there for financial freedom. And that's how athletes go broke quickly. And also how actors will go broke if they don't continue working.
Yeah, that's the problem I'm having with it. Yeah, that's the problem I'm having. What are you doing with your money? When you making that much money, I use the same principles. Like I said, even with that movie, that documentary with the Jordan, not Jordan himself, but the team, the dance.
Oh, what was it? The Last Dance?
Yeah, The Last Dance. Motivational like a motherfucker. Because think about it, all those particular energies were actually so much motivated for you. When you was, competing, you take that same philosophy and use it. And principles, and it's certain principles that I'm not saying all of them, but it was certain principles within that film.
Well, they have like 10 different types of leadership styles, which that's included in one of them. And it worked for him, the 6 of them, right? So can't knock it. Can't knock it. It worked. Yeah. Bird had his. I remember, what's his name? Robert Parrish talking about the difference between Jordan's leadership style and Bird's leadership style.
For sure.
And he was the type of man that he couldn't deal with the Jordan leadership style either, because he was he's one of those guys, and you're not just gonna threaten me, tell me you're gonna whoop my. No, you're not. Anyway, go ahead, man.
No, and it makes sense. It makes sense because I mean, even when you think about it because even like football principles, right? You're talking about some of the coaches that was great, some of these particular quarterbacks that were maintaining, handling business. I mean, speaking of quarterbacks, your boy just retired, Yeah. But at the same time, it's certain principles I think they take away with them within the football industry, even though everything has changed. The dynamics of sports literally has changed since we were playing football and what we thought football was about, or basketball. Yeah, it's a totally different, non-touch, non-defense type of scenario. And that's what I was mentioning earlier about defense. We have forgotten how to be defensive, defenseful, kind of like when we was on that sovereignty movement. I was standing up too. And I was like, no, and the funny thing is, like, I didn't even question it. I remember, like, even when the first time you came down and sat down with me when we was at, I think, Staples or something, and you sat down with me and you were showing me about the ID scenario, and that would have to been like '04. Yeah, that was like '04. And I seen you do that, and I was like, okay, yeah, this now I got something to look forward to. That type of mindset. I don't know.
The big question again, you're right. Question everything. And if we're supposed to, the main question there was always, if we're supposed to be a free people, who is the government to tell us what to do other than not causing harm to one another and not, and defrauding one another. You don't want to make somebody available to, defraud, not just but anybody that's that can be taken advantage of. Let's operate on a fair ground, on an honest contingency that everybody has to tell the truth in the contract. You have to full disclosure, that type of thing. But as far as, and I do also understand, the aspect of monopolies, because when it is very true, when somebody gets, when they corner the market, and I don't know if you're old enough to remember, the phone company used to be one national phone company before they broke it up. But they made it very difficult for anybody else to even get into the industry. So I understand, certain things about the monopoly aspect of things. What I really, really have a disdain for, and I'm going to end up doing philanthropy work in this regard, probably in my retirement years, is that I cannot stand that government has given so much power and even mirroring rights to corporations. You cannot say that that I have to come to your Secretary of State in order to start a corporation and then go to the IRS to get an EIN number. It's a creature of the state at that point, and then give it the same rights that I have as a human being. You can't, if you do that, something's retarded. That's statism. That's where you're starting to incorporate statism, which is the religion of the state, or the corporate God, if you want, or not the corporate God, sorry, the government God. And it starts to supplant. And that's one of the issues that we're having today with, with our public figures saying that we have a pandemic of the unvaccinated. Are you guys really that silly and people to believe you? Because you keep talking about breakthrough cases every day. When is it no longer a breakthrough case? Anyway, I'm going off on a different subject. Go ahead.
No, and it's right. You right on point. You always been on point. I mean, you always ask them questions like it's been plenty of times where you was right, and then you already had reflected it. You know what I'm saying? That's why I know, obviously, and this might be all spiritual or whatever, but certain people you connect with, certain people you definitely, okay, that's my second ears. That's my second ears. I know my brother got me. You know what I'm saying? That's the thing I feel with you, Brother Boz, Brother Kahafri, Brother Zaki, you know what I'm saying? And a few other brothers outside that circle. But I mean, it's an understanding. I know y'all not gonna put me in no bullshit harm,
right.
And I mean, and that's the thing, what I was saying earlier too about the mentors. We cut off. It seemed like we're not doing it anymore. That's why people are getting so involved in the podcast show and really using us as mentors, if that makes sense. No, if that makes, absolutely. You know what I'm saying?
Well, here, I think you're right on one thing, is that high achieving humanity, or to be a high achieving person, you have to have refinement. You have to take yourself to refinement, because you have to buck the natural tendencies of the mind, right? Yeah. The psychology of the mind, again, is built to protect us from harm, which means that includes our own failures. So when you talked about rites of passage or mentors, we're missing that rites of passage where we actually used to train young men how to be strong. Yes. Right? How to grow into determining what type of man you're going to be. And that's what rites of passage was. Many people think it was, you go out and live in the woods for a week and come back. That's not the dang rites of passage. Yes. They trained these kids, whether it was young ladies, for whatever their life as a woman was going to be, and their life potentially as a man, whatever their potential life was as a man was going to be. That was a training mechanism that we went through. And the final tests were always things that would improve us and help us realize what type of person, what type of being are we going to be. And to go back to what you said, not to get all spiritual, we can't help it. We're spiritual beings having a physical experience. And the matrix and the placebos and the tests and all that prove it. It proves that. Exactly. You can't tell me that somebody's mind, you gave them something, you gave them a saline solution, and they improved their own health when they were legitimately sick through their own mind, and that this is not a matrix. you can't tell me anything else now.
Come on.
You can't prove anything otherwise to me.
It's yeah. Like I said, it's a reality. I think we got the illusion as the reality, and vice versa. Most people can't handle the truth. We've been talking that line. Everybody knows that line. But at the same time, don't take it wrong. You got people who are waking up.
Oh, yeah.
Currently, they're waking up. Even though they drunk the coffee or they drunk the Kool-Aid.
And that's what happens when you get pushed too far, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You can stay sleeping as long.
Point.
You can keep them under control if they're still in the middle somewhere. And that was one of the reasons how empires, remember, I think it was Greece was the first empire to start. They may not have been the first, but I think they were the first empire to stop using military to suppress rebellion. And they started saying, you know what? You can keep your rights, your spiritual rights or your religious rights of your organization, of your previous religions, but just call yourself this. Call yourself Christian or call yourself Catholic, but still keep those rights. That's how we got Christmas. That's how we got the Christmas tree. Remember, the Christmas tree is in the Bible is restricted
worldwide too. Yeah.
It's restricted, but they still do it. And of course, there's people that try and debunk it, but that's because they're trying to justify their rights. And when I say rights, I mean RITES, not not the rights that we have as far as privileges and entitlement and so forth.
Yeah, no, great point.
But I think first off, I want to appreciate you, giving you appreciation for your time, because I wanted the people to get to know you, to know what you have to offer, and to know how deep you go. And the reason you're not providing something superficial. You're providing a service to people that goes in depth and helps them refine who they actually are, not just refine their bodies, not just trying to take their money to help refine their bodies. You're actually going in depth to the foundation of things. And that's what makes things long lasting and more impactful. So
no doubt.
I truly commend you. I think you have a great service. I think you have a great message. And I want to help you get it. I want to help you get it out there.
I appreciate that, brother. I thank you for just allowing me to come on the show with you, Be the first guest, right? I'm the first guest on the show.
You are the first guest.
Yes, sir. So we're going to start it out right.
I'm going to try and get Dr. Marino, Mr. Bob.
Okay, yes, sir.
On here,
yes, sir.
Soon. And because I think he has a lot of things, and you went into that some of his stuff a little bit.
Yes. It definitely, that brother got a lot to offer the universe. And I know the ancestors been calling us, because we definitely been, lining up, getting ready to move. Well, we already moving forward, but we definitely getting more, more prepared.
Yeah,
absolutely. You can say it that way, more prepared. Yeah.
Well, life is about change. We got to be able to adapt. And that's how you keep a strong mind, you keep a flexible mind. And that's how you're able to do it. And you keep your body right. Because I'm trying to go out like Jack LaLanne, where I'm in my 90s. I'm able to still get up and get run. If I have grandchildren running around, I can still chase them, outrun them.
Exactly. Exactly. Get them on the court.
Absolutely. There you go.
Be pulling that above the rim on him.
I know. Up there like, Grandpa's still dunking. But all right. Anybody else you want to give a shout out to?
Just to the universe, letting her know, whoever she may be, the universe in itself, male, female, androgynous, nature, metanita. No, we just shout out, just hotep for everybody. Just love, peace, happiness.
All right.
Thank you again, bro. Thank you again.
Definitely appreciate it, man. And we'll be talking soon. All
yeah,
right?
For sure. Have a good night.
You too. Thanks.
Peace.
And that is Heru Asar of You Are the Gym. All right. I appreciate you guys for joining us. I appreciate it if you've been able to sit here through this whole program or listen to it in part. Enjoy yourself. I hope this all helps. Enjoy your day and be well. Peace and prosperity.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.